Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you. So the G20 Ministerial Conference sessions are over 1.5 day of meeting. Also, we had another meeting with the Open Forum. So very intense work. So I would like to thank the Italian presidency and the delegation of my staff for the organization of this event. It's clear that when a country has the presidency of the G20, has a lot of enthusiasm, and this is also accompanied by the preoccupation of organizing this incredible event in presence during the pandemic. I think that everything went extremely well from the organizational point of view. So I would like to thank the presidency of the Council of Ministers, all the people who contributed to this successful meeting, the Tuscany region, the volunteers, Mayor Mr. Nardella, and the municipality of Florence. So these were very intense days of work, and we together focused on some themes with great commitment. First of all, I would like to say that this ministerial meeting took place in 2 days, which means that the Italian government attaches great importance to the food systems and food production and agriculture. Moreover, I would like to say that there was a high participation of delegations with a high number of people present here in Florence, but also active participation in different meetings, in fact, international meetings. It's only possible to speak for a limited amount of time, but during the open forum and also yesterday and this morning, we had a constant presence of all ministers of all delegations in the work, which means that they are willing to work together in order to increase resilience and sustainability of the agri-food system, production system. So I would like to say the thing that impressed me of these 3 days is awareness. The awareness of the many challenges we have, the complex problems we have to deal with. So the deep analysis of the motivations and the reasons why some things are not working as we hoped when we had the Agenda 2030 objectives or the COP26 or the Paris Accords. So there are some delays that we are investigating on these delays, and we have to find answers and solutions. I believe that we all emphasized the existence of major paradoxes in food systems. I would like to mention two. At the same time, we have a major problem of food waste. So not only food produced but not consumed, but also biological waste. So too many calories intake in some areas of the country, some area of the planet. We have over 100 million people with food poverty. This is a paradox that we produce an amount of food that is absolutely necessary to feed 7.5 billion people on the planet. But at the same time, there is waste on one side, and also lack of food on the other. Another paradox is water. In fact, climate change is giving us droughts, and so large areas of the planet in which we have constant drought, and then extreme events with unmanageable rainfalls and huge damage, for example, hailstorms, mudslides, floods. So we have little water. On the other side, we cannot use it or capture it when we have it, or use it in the best possible way. So we have to reverse the trend of climate change, and we need to have social, environmental, and economic sustainability. Agriculture can provide its contribution to this, and it's increasingly doing so. It is not the only production sector that can act in this way, but there is one particular problem. There are some raw materials that have major environmental production impacts, such as steel. Technological research can help us find new materials in order to go towards a lower production of steel. There is a major impact of plastic on the environment. We have to produce food on a continuous basis. That we cannot replace food. We all have to produce food, and we have to make food protection compatible with environmental protection, health protection, human health protection. And we clearly see that one of the central elements of this process is innovation. I can say I'm very proud of having allowed agriculture to access the 4.0 package measures. This was not my invention. I just extended this package to farmers. So now they have tax credits, and now they are investing a lot on innovation. Innovation does not only mean research or discovery of new tools to have more sustainable production. Innovation also means the involvement of all stakeholders. So the Italian production system, but believe me, in talking to ministers coming from all corners of the world, is a very widespread problem. So we have micro farms, family-based farms, or, for example, families that for generations have tilled the land. And, for example, innovation in these kind of industries really complex, and so it will be necessary to have the involvement of the trade associations. They should intermediate between the country, production activities, and the possibility to provide them with the necessary tools. Because, for example, the small farmer with 8 hectares or 8.6 is the average acreage in our countries. And the production system is linked to non-advanced technologies. So that small farmer cannot have access to drones, precision agriculture, satellites, or, for example, artificial intelligence irrigation systems, or, for example, soil management, fertility management with satellite instruments. It's quite difficult for him or them to find these instruments. So we need an organization of production processes so that even small producers may access those services and instruments. Another theme that we touched upon is income, because it's evident that there is a problem in terms of income for farmers, for how the architecture of production is designed. So the production of food and agricultural products. In fact, we have increasing poverty among farmers. So we need to ensure food production with another paradox. So the creation of added value also goes through a transformation and the presence on rich international markets where value is created. So a passage from small production and the need to maintain production on a local basis and the distribution channel to the creation of value is a paradox, because on the one hand, I need to deal with the global market, and so with global trade. On the other hand, for environmental and transportation requirements, I need to use that product on a local level. So we believe it's possible to create added value even if you remain on the local markets. Many producers in our country, for example, in winemaking, wines are exported, but they're mainly consumed at home. So that added value has been created without falling into the paradox of greater waste of energy. So we approved the Charter of Sustainability of the food ecosystems of Florence. This is a final communique So it has been unanimously approved. So the ball is in our field, and it's always an honor to preside over or participate in high-level international conferences where speeches are always high-quality events. But then if we go to Indonesia next year and then in the future we don't do anything, the planet is not going to wait for us. So we have to be able to deploy policies reversing the trend once and for all without looking at immediate spin-offs or consensus, because probably what we're doing now is going to have effects in the long term. So we have to be good at doing something practically. So we need policies in line with the objectives that we have created in Florence. Thank you. And I am now available for the questions. Good morning. Good morning, Minister. So with respect to the content of the Charter of Sustainability, I would like to ask you whether you have concrete commitments, and you were referring yesterday to the contradictions linked to sustainability, increasing productivity, decreasing pollution, and if there are some specific commitments in the countries, for example, where multinationals are actually masterminding the business. Yes, there are some interesting commitments to the 2030 agenda, one of the most important objectives, the SDG number 2. So, for example, zero hunger, because it's clear that each country is actually experiencing one part of the problems. For us, even though we are aware that too often in Italy, children only have one full meal at school. So the theme of food security does exist in Italy. There are areas of the world where this is the main problem. So on this point, the objective is really to increase multilaterality of relations, cooperation among countries in order to avoid food waste and allow for healthy food production in countries where this is not happening, even though they can do it. For example, a large focus on technological transfer, not a vertical way, but in a horizontal way among the different countries, where the most advanced research and development can be used to allow developing countries to have an immediate access with a technological shift towards other technologies. So from the environmental point of view, we have concrete commitments. We have to go on providing a contribution to the ecological transition, the agri-food system. We know we have to adapt different models to different production models. So this is really a document that, even though we must find compromises, because when there are many countries signing a document, you need to compromise in order to have a unanimous approval of the document. But with respect to the text, this document is very concrete.
Buon pomeriggio, Ministro. Luca Cellini dell'agenzia di stampa Italpress. Ieri.
Good afternoon. Last evening, Premier Draghi, PM Draghi, said on climate, we are not really taking care of the goals, the objectives fixed, so we have to start again thinking about it. So I would like to ask you, which is the contribution of agriculture to improve the climate issue? Thank you so much. I fully share the words of PM Draghi. It's clear that many goals which were fixed were not really complied with. Over the last few years, we have seen the commitment slowing down compared relating to the Paris Agreement and other commitments fixed in the set out in Agenda 2030. Agriculture can contribute, of course, but I have to say that the tractor which pollutes less is the tractor which is not working. So we must, anyhow, allow these tractors to work producing food, but in a sustainable manner, always taking glance to the environmental issues of finding compensation measures in order to avoid damage to the climate, because it's not about producing food, but also managing the land. If we do not change our approach now in the production of food in terms of income, increase the danger is that lands will be abandoned. The abandonment culture cannot be at the basis of the attempt to avoid the environmental related damages. So you cannot really count on that. The management of the process and the management of land is the only way we have for taking care of environment. So agriculture must detect public incentive measures also in non-productive areas. Now we have the biological dimension through the regional development plans, of course, but many direct contributions of the first pillar are exclusively based on production areas. One of the elements to be debated is to how to incentive also the management of production areas in order to limit the disaster and to take care of afforestation in our country, which doesn't imply abandoning forests, but it means managing them properly. So agriculture can indeed, it is doing that also, can contribute to reaching the goals set out, but environmental sustainability cannot exist without social and economic sustainability too. Morning, Minister, La Repubblica. In your declaration, you said in your statement that we realize that many things are not working as to the Agenda 2030. I just want to know what is not functioning, and the other one about the food coalition, as you said yesterday, 1 year before the 1 year from this declaration. I want to understand which are the achievements, how many countries joined. Okay, thank you so much for your question. Well, I can just give you a few concrete examples to explain what was not really functioning in the 2030 agenda, but in a broader way. Many times, I have to say, if we make some choices, we have to divide into two parts the field. So on one hand, increasing the consensus or losing the consensus. Two actions were attempted to be taken in our country. We try to do so. The sugar tax and the plastic tax are two examples. I was the Minister of Economic Development in my past, so I understand the problems of the companies. Transition is a process, indeed. It's not a big gap. Otherwise, when you get to the end of this big gap, that's the end only. But it's a process which must be agreed and kept. Because these elements were debated also in the budget law in 2018. So now we have to properly prorogate their coming into force because at the same time we were not able to implement the necessary instruments to let companies face this transition in the use of plastic and in the production of sugar. Companies are doing themselves, but we need public policies accompanying these efforts. This is just a small example. It can be done in several countries in many cases. Policy is doubtful because it is scared of losing consensus. Like I said before during the conclusions of the ministerial meeting, I was speaking about the turtle. The turtle is slow. The vet, when he is treating the turtle, you will see the effect of that medicine in the turtle only after a few hours. It's very difficult to see the results of a treatment on a turtle. Policies like this, we are doing today something whose effects will be clear after a few years. So we will not get the results of what we are doing today exactly today. So our actions can cause a loss of consensus, maybe. So policy cannot be scared by this fear of losing consensus. We must overcome this approach. As to the food coalition issue, along with Deputy Director Martina, we are working on several issues to guarantee, along with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy, the issue in Afghanistan of the harvesting to do in this period when non-governmental organizations are playing a crucial role. We are searching for concerted actions to help some population which are now facing serious issues to food supply. Already 35 countries have joined this food coalition, but these figures are constantly changes because there is an increasing attention towards the role of FAO to overcome these issues. Morning, Minister. AGI agency. During G20, you were talking about sustainability in agriculture and environmental aspects also. And I want to talk about exploitation of workers in agriculture. So I know that in the beginning you were trying to adopt some measures to overcome this issue. Can I understand which measures will be relating to also migration and world exploitation?
Well, this theme has not been completely fulfilled, and we dealt with sustainability more on an environmental side rather than on social side, and the need to change our approach. As you know, at the center of my political agenda in my country, the fight against the illegal intermediation of labor is one of the central elements. Last, we have mapped the need for workforce on a territorial level during the year, together with CREA. And of course, I think this had never been done because in order to better manage the workforce flow, and it is absolutely fundamental to know how many people are needed in certain seasons. And then we know that the illegal intermediation of labor can will not be so successful if we provide a decent income to farmers, because sometimes workers in the field are subjected to illegal intermediation because producers don't have enough income to pay for labor, and organized crime has its organizational power to do this. If we increase the income of producers, of farmers, let's say, yes, farmers, it will be possible also to have more decent jobs for people working in the fields. I think that one of the true novelties of the new common agricultural policy is to have attained the social conditionality as a central element of this policy. This was a difficult balance to reach, but the Council and the Parliament have worked very well because they found a balance between positions that were very different, but then common sense prevailed, believing that it was absolutely unacceptable that those who use illegal intermediation of labor for their workforce and may receive public contributions from Europe or national contributions to produce. Good morning, Minister. Matteo Bernardelli from Agro Notizia. Cereal and oily seeds are having a spike in prices, not only in Italy, and there may be problems in the supply of raw materials for pasta making, or, for example, increases in prices of products from animal husbandry, and also reduction of international strategic stocks, which just very imbalanced according to the countries. Have you talked about this during this G20? Do you think that a global abolition of duties, customs duties, may be a useful solution? Well, these are two different aspects. First of all, yes, on the margin of the G20, especially in some events with the trade associations, we talked about this. For example, we see the trends that are taking place, especially for some production sectors. For animal husbandry is the one that is most affected. But that spiral is also to be seen looking at speculations taking place. So we have international exchanges operating in the last 48 hours. So probably a plateau has been reached, and then the trend is going to go downward. So probably we will have to act globally. Duties, one of the elements that may cause price hikes. So from this point of view, in the bilateral meeting with the American Secretary of Agriculture, we shared the results of the American administration, for example, as to the fact that they are not going to reimpose duties. But the problem is that in the end, the increase in production costs in some supply chains is not matched with the increase in consumer prices, but a lower margin for producers, because the supply chain is actually discounting this cost, putting it on the shoulder of producers, which is actually going against what we would like to do. Good morning, Minister. Andrea Telefoni from Italia Oggi. Two questions. We saw that technology is an indispensable element to bridge the gap between producing more at the same time, consuming fewer resources and polluting less. So Italy would like to have more technological transfer towards small farmers. Have you envisaged any incentives for this? And then another question. So there is an issue devastating Italy. So what are the measures Italy is about to take in Europe to defend our Prosecco? Well, as to the first question, well, in the 4.0 package that we implemented in the Economic Development Ministry, there is a very important part related to training. So the training costs are not only related to the cost of trainers, but also the fact that people attending training courses cannot work. And so in the food and agricultural sector, we need a lot of training to use new technologies because these are not so much used, even though they are available. So this is a first step, but I believe it's absolutely fundamental to have technological transfer. So one of the latest things that we did in my previous government experience was the NetTech Foundation in order to facilitate, and it still has the objective to facilitate technological transfers. One of the investment channels would be the agriculture and food system. So I believe that there is a strong demand for innovation, and so we need the skills to capitalize on innovation opportunities. Also in the National Recovery Plan, including the 4.0 package, we have different measures that will allow for innovation in the food and agricultural sector. Mechanization, 500 million to be allocated to replace obsolete machines, but also 800 million euros worth of logistics with innovation, digitalization, and I'm thinking of fruits and vegetables as one of the value chains that will benefit from the modernization of logistics and distribution of products in Italy. Then, as to your second question, I am very optimistic with respect to Prosecco and Prosec. I am because the presidents are very evident. So Tokai, that in that case is relevant for my region. So the reasons why Italy cannot use the name Tokai will be the same motivations for which the EU will forbid Croatia to use Prosec. There was, for example, the Spanish word champanillo. So another name that was blocked because the sound is champagne. Nobody ever said that champagne had to compete against Champanillo. Maybe that kind of wine is very good, but you have to have another name. So the commissioner has rightly said that the commission has not decided yet. So the commission has actually accepted the application, but it has not actually analyzed the application together. And I would like to thank the Undersecretary Centinaio for the rapid action. So we immediately set up a technical session in order to evaluate the situation in a very precise way. I'm very optimistic that this will not be deleterious for the most important denomination in Italy in terms of amount of product and the added value. Good morning. Good morning, Minister. I came from the China Media Group. Yesterday, you and the deputy director of the FAO talked about the importance of multilateralism in order to end hunger, especially for the most vulnerable countries. So I would like to ask you, in addition to the food coalition, what are the next steps at the G20 level in order to bridge the gap between advanced countries and most vulnerable countries, especially as far as food systems are concerned? Thank you. The next steps have to be identical to the ones that we are taking. I would like to thank Director General Kudongu from the FAO, because with his arrival, we really have seen an increase in the multilateral events managed by the FAO. I told the director that he has to help governments to be incisive, because for the reasons I said before, political difficulties in decision-making within the governments, if there is a third party, an agency that is actually stimulating the ministers of all countries to act, this will make our work easier. It's clear that we left with a commitment to sharing best practices. So when we talked about the access to food and its problems, all countries, even countries that have great problems in providing their citizens with quality food, they explained what they were doing. And I have to say that each speech provided us with the ideas that can be used in other countries, also without mentioning one measure or another approach. What counts, as I said at the beginning, we should not actually meet in 1 year, but we have to go on sharing the best practices on a regular basis, evaluating the effects of these actions and cooperation among all the countries, among the ones that can provide healthy and quantity food to the citizens, and others that have problems. Thank you very much. I'm told that there are no more questions. Thank you and good work. Thank you.